Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wisdom Seat podcast episode. For this episode, I wanted to talk about the idea of regret. Sometimes I'll read about people sort of setting their lives up to avoid future regret. This idea of saying, I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret that I never did X or Y, or that I never tried such and such a thing. So I wanted to spring this topic on my friend Michael Carroll and ask if he had a Buddhist perspective on regret. So, Michael, I wanted to ask about if you have a perspective on regret.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about this, obviously, and what I'd have to say about it is kind of threefold. The first is that the Buddhist path, at some point as we enter into the journey, we look at our lives and there's a sense of what's translated as a sense of revulsion. That we've gotten ourselves into a circumstance with our life where we're afraid of our lives. And that because we're afraid of our lives, we've spent more time trying to secure ourselves rather than live. That impulse to be frightened of our lives and to secure ourselves creates enormous suffering, because we end up trying to strategize ourselves through life rather than living it. And we try to hold on to life when it can't be held on to.
Yeah.
We try to protect ourselves from uncertainty when that's impossible. And at some point, from Buddhists, as we enter into the journey with full passion and full commitment, there is some sense of revulsion at that entire scheme, that entire project. I looked up the word regret, and it does have its root in grieving.
Yeah.
That there is a sense of letting go of our need to protect ourselves from life. And there is a sadness in that, obviously, but there's also a sense of relief. So I would say the first kind of understanding of regret from a Buddhist point of view is this revulsion with our habits of trying to protect ourselves from life rather than live it. And in looking at our conduct and the way we've lived our lives, we may actually, regret in the fullest sense of grieving how we conducted ourselves and saying farewell to it, leaving it behind. I often liken taking refuge, which, as you know, is the kind of the first vow a Buddhist takes, as like leaving a toxic relationship. It's, you got to get out of the relationship, but you kind of don't want to leave. It's hard, and you keep going back to it. Well, when you take refuge, you actually leave and never go back. And there's a sense of grief there. And one may actually regret how one conducted oneself in trying to live such a hypocritical approach to life, cowardly approach to life. That would be a basic kind of approach. The second issue about regret is that, I think we talked about this earlier, is this notion of being wounded, which is interesting. That the etymology of regret is grief. That when you look, we all have regrets.
Sure.
We all have regrets. And there is a sense of being hurt by life. That one could have conducted oneself differently, or one could have elevated oneself more, or maybe one could have helped someone else more, or that there is something where we're wounded. And in the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva path, that wound is sacred. It hurts. It hurts being wounded. When everyone listening to this knows what it's like to have a broken heart. I mean, to be human is to have a broken heart.
Yeah.
So I think one of the profound elements of regret is the sense of being wounded by life. Now, those two elements there of leaving behind a fear-based life and also feeling the wound of regret, it's very important to understand that regret also has a poisonous element to it, because one can feel shame,
Yes.
a deep
Absolutely.
shame about one's conduct, or how one maybe treated someone else, or how one maybe never lived up to what was expected of. I mean, I have many regrets. I'm not going to go through them all here, where I wish I had conducted myself differently. But part of it is not, from the Buddhist point of view, is to be gentle with oneself, with the wound,
Yeah.
rather than beating ourselves up and being shamed by one's conduct or one's error.
Yeah. I mean, I do see a lot of younger people, sort of trying to strategize around potential future regret. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret the way I lived, or that I never went for it, or so that I think that sounds a little like what you were mentioning a moment ago, not living up to something they intended to.
Yeah, and that's there is a third dynamic here that I think I want to bring your attention to, which I think is really at the very heart of regret. Is to be human inherently, we're hardwired as to be noble. Particularly in a materialistic world, more so now than ever, we can get the impression, or people are given the impression by modern materialism, that collecting, pleasures, emotional trophies, psychological litter, and all kinds of little pleasures, collecting them and curating them and amassing them so that you have a pleasure is it can begin to give one the impression that that's the measure of success. That I have a nice home, I have a nice car, things have worked out, that can give the impression that that's what life is about. And of course, live a good life. I'm not saying that one should not. I mean, obviously. But really, what we're from a Buddhist point of view, what we're hardwired for is nobleness, to be noble beings.
Hmm.
And I think at the very heart of regret is that we may not have understood that we may not understand that being a noble human being, how do we do that? Can we do that? Can we be noble?
Mm.
And I think that's part of the confusion of being human, is that we are inherently noble, but we seem to lose our way. So I think at the very heart of the wound of regret is this desire to be noble being.
Mm.
What we were just saying about these young people that go, I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret X. If it's like, I regret that I never had an ice cream cone. Okay, kind of weird, but I suspect it's a much larger sense of aspiring to becoming a realized human being, a fully realized human being, which, as you know, as a Buddhist, is what this path is about. Becoming fully realized, which is really the urge, not just of you and me, but it's, again, from Buddhist point of view, it's infinite spaces. That's what it's inclining toward. And I think that is at the heart of regret, is this human tendency to want to fulfill this sense of nobleness.
Michael had another part that he wanted to add, but the microphone didn't pick it up very well, so I'm going to read it here. It's very important that we understand that regret is not something that we punish ourselves with. From the Buddhist point of view, the revulsion with how we conduct ourselves based on fear and hypocrisy is good. We can actually let go of it and open. And in opening, we feel this wound. And at the very heart of regret is this openness. And part of what this wound is pointing to is that we are noble beings, and we're hardwired to be profoundly noble. I think that's what regret is about. It's not a weapon to be used against ourselves, to make ourselves shamed and degraded, and further harm ourselves. It's meant to help us clarify our hearts and our sense of nobleness. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to check out what we're doing at the Wisdom Seat, just get yourself to thewisdomseat.org, thewisdomseat.org. All right, take care.